Okay, so the project that we're going to be doing today is this chrysocolla and copper ring. We're going to be doing a little bit of simple, just wrapping around a ring shank and using the excess wires to catch this gemstone and secure it into place. Okay, the materials that you need for this project are, again, very simple, very minimal. We're going to need some 0.8 gauge wire and some 0.4 gauge wire, as well as our gemstone. Okay, so the tools that we'll be using are very simple. You have your flush cutters, your chain nose pliers, your round nose pliers, and we will be using and needing a ring mandrel for this project. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to focus on the ring shank itself. So we're going to need to cut some wire. We're going to cut 3 lengths of 0.8 gauge wire, and we're going to cut it about 11 to 12 inches. Then going to take some 0.4 gauge wire and I'm going to wrap them nice and flat to give us this really effective ring shank here. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cut my wires, as you can see here, and I'm going to come about 1/3 of the way in because I want to wrap that center section just here. I want these wires to stay nice and flat, so I'm going to take my 0.4 wire. I've cut just a workable length, a couple of meters, and I'm going to place that where I want it roughly, keeping that little tail there. I'm just going to hold that with my hand to keep it secure. And then nice and relaxed, I'm just going to wrap all 3 of these wires. Now, what you don't want to do is to pull this wire too tight, because it will bring these wires together into a little bunch, and we don't want that. We want them to remain flat. So what I tend to do is a couple of rotations, so say 5 rotations, scoot it up a little bit, and then I will take my chain nose pliers and I will just very gently flatten the whole area that I've just wrapped, and then I will just run the pliers just along the next section so that they are flat. So going around a couple of times, try to keep those wraps nice and straight. Couple of rotations, pliers, flatten, and then just flatten that again, and just continue until you've got about 2 inches of wrapping. Okay, so I've gone ahead and wrapped my wire, so I have about 2 inches here, and the reason I say that is it's a good starting point. It's about a good average, and if you need to wrap a little bit more, you can easily do so, and if you need to take a little bit off, it's easy enough to unwrap. So I'm going to go ahead and use my ring mandrel now. So this ring mandrel is a UK one and is done in letters, not numbers. And what I will say is that because of the wrapping that we've just done on the wires now, that will actually make the inner diameter of the ring a little bit smaller. So what you want to do is you want to aim for your finished ring to be about a size bigger than you would normally wear. So if you normally wear, say, an N, you would like your finished ring to be about an O, just to allow for the workings that go on within this ring. So when you're actually going to place it onto here, what I'm going to do is go for my finished size, so my finished adjusted size. So I'm going to aim for an O. So I'm going to place my wires and I'm going to find the middle of them. I'm just going to bring it around the O, and what I'm doing is I'm going just slightly underneath the line. So, and again, that's just to allow for the little bit of adjustment that we'll be doing towards the end. So as you can see, there is about 1 centimetre of bare wire there, which is what I wanted. So I'm going to leave these wires as they are. I'm going to remove the ring mandrel and I'm going to open them slightly. What I need to do now is to get rid of the 0.4 wire. So to get rid of the 0.4 wire, I'm simply opened out these wires a little bit, and you'll see I've got these 2 wires just here. They are on the inside of all the wire work, and I'm going to take my 0.4 and simply wrap it once and then twice around that single wire. Taking my flush cutters, I'm going to just trim that. I'm going to repeat on the opposite side. Once you've cut those, just take your chain nose pliers and just scoot them up and make sure there are no sharp edges. The reason that I've done this is because the gemstone will be sitting over that, so there's no risk of any sharp wires. Okay, so I'm going to be returning back to the ring mandrel, and we're going to return to the ring mandrel quite a few times because we really want to make sure that the sizing stays accurate. So what I'm going to do is just place it back at the size that I wanted, which is the O. And so again, what I'm going to do is just move the outer pairs of wire out of the way, and then that way all I'm dealing with are these two wires here. When I'm doing this, I'm pinching it really nice and tight, because if I let this go, see how it's dropped because of the spring in the wire. So what I'm doing is I'm holding this really nice and tight, making sure again it stays true to that size. And what I'm going to do is take this wire here, bring it over and wrap it at this point, and then I'm going to take this wire here, bring it over and wrap it at this point. So holding this all nice and steady, I'm taking that wire and I'm simply bringing it across through the ring shank, taking my pliers so that I can keep everything nice and stable with my hand, and just bring that around and back down. That's going to give me that little loop securing it. So before I do the opposite side, again I'm just going to go in and make sure I haven't made that too big. As you can see there, that's a little bit big. So what I want to do is pinch this so that when I go across, I'm keeping and locking that size in where I want it. So it is quite important to pop it back onto that ring mandrel before you do that second piece of wire, just in case it has dropped in size. And then you can just bring that back across, squeeze it very slightly to make sure it stays where it was meant to be, bring that wire through. So there you can see we're looking like that. So I'm going to again take my ring mandrel, just bring it back to make sure I'm happy with where that size is, and that's fine, that's sitting at the O, so I'm happy with that. And then I can go ahead and trim these wires. I needed to check that first because obviously I could undo it and tweak it if I needed to. So to cut these wires, what I'm doing is I'm taking my flush cutters, and you can see that wire is nice and pressed into the wrapping. So I'm holding everything nice and steady. I've got my hand just supporting that ring, and I'm going to line it up with the top of the ring shank. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to snip, holding that so it doesn't go anywhere, that wire. I'm then going to go ahead, take my chain nose pliers and just very gently flatten that to make sure there are no sharp edges. Run your finger along it to make sure it's nice and smooth. Turn the piece around and repeat on the other side. Okay, so we're just going to get these wires into position now. So what I'm going to do is just bring the two sort of inner ones back into a nice straight direction, and these ones on the outside here, I'm actually going to go ahead and fold outwards. Now I'm going to get my gemstone and I'm going to place it on, and hopefully we can see how it's going to start to look. Okay, I've just gone ahead and got my ring mandrel, placed it back onto the ring mandrel just because it stabilizes it a bit. So I'm placing that there, and I want to use the wires that were going in the natural direction, not the ones that I bent. And I'm going to bring that around, and I'm just going to start to form the shape of the gemstone. This isn't going to secure it at this stage, but it's just going to start to give me the shape of the frame. So I've gone up and across, and at this point I'm just going to push that wire against that gemstone so that I can get an idea of how it's going to fit shape wise. Remove your gemstone, remove your mandrel, and you'll see you've got a shape of the gemstone here. And what I want to do is take in the wire from the shape. I'm holding that shape nice and steady so I don't lose that shape we've just created. Feed that wire through the ring shank, very carefully, making sure you keep that shape, and bringing it across so it's back in the original position it came from. Okay, I'm now going to go ahead and place that gemstone back in. Okay, so I've just placed that gemstone back in where I wanted it to go. Now obviously it's not secure, so I'm going to take another wire, and what I want to do is come across. If I turn this piece over, see this wire here? This is one of the wires that we bent into a different direction, so I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to come up and over and down back to its original position, the same as we did with the first wire. So holding it all nice and steady. Now what I'm doing is really putting pressure on the gemstone and the wires to really make sure it stays nice and stable. You may need to move the wire out of the way, bringing that down so it's really moulding against that gemstone, holding that nice and steady. And then what I'm going to do is I just tend to use my thumb to push and feed that wire through to the other side. Okay, so you could just leave your ring like this. The gemstone is nice and secure, it cannot go anywhere, but personally for me I liked the double layered look. So to do the second layer, what I'm going to do now is, again, I'm just going to go to the opposite corner. You can see I've got the other wire that I bent out. I'm just going to place that directly across, and again I'm just going to repeat that same motion, bring that all the way around. Again, I just find that by folding and pushing that wire through, it helps that wire to mould to the gemstone, and that's back in position. And then we've just got one more that we need to do, and that's to come across this direction. Just to make it look a bit visually better, what I'm going to do is I want it to go over one of these wires and under the next. So if you have a little look, if I place it like this, you can see this wire has a slight gap just where it's going over the wire in this direction. So I'm going to take this wire here and feed it through that gap. Keep it all nice and steady. Control it when you're doing this. And again, just place that wire where you want it to go. Turn the whole piece over, keeping it nice and steady. And there you have your finished effect. Now what you can do at this point is just really play about with these wires, really make sure you're happy with the positioning of them, because obviously you've still got a bit of movement as you haven't locked any of these tail wires in just yet. The other thing that I would say is take your pliers and very gently just flatten the whole layer of wire on the top and the bottom, but again please go very careful, you do not want to damage your gemstone, just to help them lay a little bit flatter. You see that's looking a little bit flatter now. And again, just really take your time to have these wires sitting where you want them to go, and then we're ready to finish the ring. Okay, so to finish this ring we're going to do the same on both sides. I'm going to bring these wires across, so again I'm keeping everything nice and steady with my hand, and I'm just taking these two wires and really locking them into place against that ring shank. That's really brought these wires into place here as well. Okay, I'm then going to get rid of one of these wires. Now if you see, we've got like one just on the outside and one on the inside. I actually want to get rid of the one on the outside first, so I'm going to just take that, feed it around the ring shank once, and the same as we did before, take your flush cutters, cut that nice and close to the edge of the ring shank and flatten. Then going to take the remaining wire and just almost overwrap what we've done. So feed that wire through. What we don't want to do is make it look too bulky, so I'm just going to bring that around a couple of times. Try and get it to sit next to those wires. And finish the same way. So again, you're going to need to make sure, feel the work and make sure that there are no sharp edges. If you feel a sharp edge, just come in and almost just kind of rock with your pliers just to try to get that edge smooth, and then make sure there's no sharp edges. Turn your piece around and repeat on the opposite side. Okay, and there you have it. There is your finished ring. So what I would say then is, if your ring has gotten a little bit distorted whilst you've been adjusting it, feel free to pop it back onto your ring man drawer. I tend to do this anyway, and you'll see that looking at this, it's gone down to about an M. So obviously it's gone quite a few sizes lower than I was looking for. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is just take the whole ring and just twist the ring man drawer, and that will stretch it to the size that we were aiming for. and it will go to the size that you were aiming for, because obviously that was what we were measuring all along. So you can see there you have your finished ring. It's sitting at the exact size that you wanted to. Remove that, and also it's a good opportunity just to feel if there's any sharp edges. So there it is, your finished ring ready to wear. It's comfortable to wear, and I think it looks really pretty and effective. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I really look forward to seeing your results.